Hello, BookTube. It's Wednesday, and that's New Comic Book Day here in America, when vaguely spheroidal, man-like creatures put aside their family-sized bag of Cool Ranch Doritos chips and shuffle to the nearest LCS, the local comic shop, where they look at but do not buy the latest issue of all the stuff that they disapprove of. And I, for a long time, was a member of their ranks, honorary status anyway, where I would go every week and buy a stack of comic books. But I gradually worked my way out of that habit. Not only did comic books get more and more expensive for less and less real estate, but also the comic book industry. Both Marvel, the home of Spider-Man and Wolverine and the X-Men and the Avengers, and DC, the home of all the real superheroes, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, they both started embracing the aging of their audience and started making collections, paperback, hardcover, gift collections of older stuff, so that and not only older stuff but all of their modern stuff too. The comic books now in the two mainstream superhero publishers are made to be collections down the line. There's no sloppiness at all. The story arcs are made to be 6 issues, which is a graphic novel, and the combination of those two things, the escalating price and the fact that you're ended up paying for the same thing twice, just sort of moved me away from weekly issues, from having a subscription pull list and all that. But I still go as regularly as I can, because that reprint culture is so strong that there's almost always something I want to buy, something I know I like and that I know I'll reread. And that was true this week as well. There was an item in the comic shop, a graphic novel in the comic shop. It was one of Marvel's Epic Collection softcover editions. These things here that have the Epic Collection title on the top, and they're just thick paperbacks of full color reprints of various things from Marvel's past. And they do them regularly because I think it's taken off. It's a bit of a hit. They had something similar in the Essential line, the Essential Marvel reprint line, where they would do big square-bound paperbacks, but only in black and white. And these are all color comics. So the Epic Collection was an idea long in the coming, and now it's something that a lot of fans seem to like. I certainly do. There's hardly an Epic Collection that I'm not interested in. And there was one this week. It's this. It's Marvel 2-in-1. And the title of the volume is Cry Monster, and it was a team-up book. The Thing, Ben Grimm from Marvel's The Fantastic Four, would team up every month with a different character from the Marvel Universe. Oddly enough, ironically enough, this cover is from Marvel Feature, which is a satellite Marvel miscellaneous title that the editors at Marvel tried out the idea in first to see if fans would like it. So, oddly enough, this particular John Romita Sr. cover never actually was part. It never had Marvel 2-in-1 across the top of it. This is the first time for that. But the idea did take off. So Marvel launched a series called Marvel 2-in-1 in which the Thing would team up with a new character every month. And it was popular. Comic book series don't last forever, and this one lasted for a long time. It started in the early 70s, and it lasted until the early 80s. That's a long time for a run of a comic book. And the reason I'm using the past tense or the conditional tense or whatever is because although this came to comic shops today, I didn't go to get it. Because not only was it soppingly humid, 96% humidity, so you take a glass of water, you throw it into the air, and it sort of slides to the ground because there's no evaporation. But also, we've got pop-up thunder and lightning storms all day, drenching downpours 1 minute, sopping humidity the next. Not the kind of day that you really want to go out and about if you don't have to, and I don't have to. So this is more along the lines of a Comics Wednesday TBR. The next time the weather is in any way not the middle of a Louisiana bayou, I will go and get this thing. I definitely want it. While I was thinking about that, I was thinking, well, I don't actually need the thing in hand to natter on boringly about it, especially since I have one or two things that are of interest about team-up books like this. Marvel did 2 of them regularly. They did Marvel 2-in-1, which starred the Thing and a monthly guest star, and they did Marvel Team-Up, which starred Spider-Man and a monthly guest star. Those were 2 of Marvel's most popular characters at the time. As in the 70s and the early 80s, before the advent, before things became all mutants all the time, before Wolverine became the only character that Marvel Comics publishes. And as usual, that was Marvel sort of imitating what DC Comics had done before. DC Comics also, all throughout the same time, had 2 regular team-up books. They had DC Presents, which was Superman teaming up with a new person every month, and The Brave and the Bold, in which Batman teamed up with a new person every month. And that you can see right away, I think, in those 4, kind of sort of one of the bedrock appeals of the whole thing is that you have a given. You have, at the time, again, the Thing was a given in the Marvel Universe. He's not anymore, but once upon a time he was. You have a given against which you can highlight new characters. And I always thought it was tons of fun. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. Usually these books didn't get top draw artists. Usually they got writers who were either not top draw or who were badly distracted and turned in some fairly silly scripts. Like, for instance, the writer for Marvel 2-in-1 most of the time was Steve Gerber, who's comic book writers just don't get more intelligent, more sarcastic, and unpredictable than him. But he could make whoppers. when he made them usually in Marvel 2-in-1. There's one issue, I think it might be Marvel 2-in-1 #1, which teams up the Thing with Marvel's swamp creature Man-Thing, which is a mindless creature that lives in the swamp. And the plot of that issue could not be any sillier. But there it was. You paid your 25 cents and you got it. And also, the series highlighted the fact that, for me anyway, it underscores that team-up books would be trickier, much trickier today. The whole idea of the team-up is that the characters, the bedrock character, the host character, as it were, has to be simple enough so that fans don't spend any time thinking about the host character. You want them to spend all their time thinking about the guest star and talking about the guest star, which is why the guest stars can be wacky in the extreme. This Epic collection, I think it collects the first 20 issues of Marvel 2-in-1, and in that 20-issue span, I would be willing to bet that probably better than half the characters that guest star with the Thing in these issues are Marvel characters that you would not know unless you were a dyed-in-the-wool Marvel fan. The Golem, Mordred the Mystic. The Scarecrow, for Pete's sake, doesn't even exist as a Marvel character anymore. They came on and gave writers a chance to interact that character with the Thing's, down to earth personality, and it often worked. It's to a greater degree than a lot of fans considered at the time or ever since. These were character-driven stories. You wanted to see how the characters would bounce off the host character. There were slight logistical problems in one of each of the 2 pairs of team-up books. If you have a team-up book with Superman, you can see the logistical problem right away. The formula for these things was identical and very simple. A misunderstanding causes the 2 characters to fight briefly at the beginning, and then they realize they're a mistake and fight the real villain. That is the formula for these things. You can have variations on that, you can suspend the formula, but that is usually the formula. And what are you going to do with that formula if the host character is Superman? Your guest character can't possibly win in the initial fight, and your guest character isn't possibly needed in the subsequent fight against the villain. And that's not true with Batman. With Batman's books, if anything, in the 70s, had the opposite problem, which is that almost everybody who came onto Batman's book was far more powerful than he was. It became really a question of testing who Batman is in the DC universe, in a way that, well, it wasn't logistics. It was simple sexism that stopped Wonder Woman from having her own regular team-up book. A vague rendition of that was tried in one incarnation of her own book, but it didn't really work. But the same thing is true in the Marvel books. Spider-Man is Spider-Man. Swings on a web, webs people, wisecracks, can stick to walls, has a fair amount of super strength, but nothing to write home about. And so is a perfect foil for any guest that you bring on, whereas the Thing presents more of a problem, because he can lift 85 tons. He's one of the strongest characters in the Marvel lineup, and he's virtually indestructible. So, and he's seen it all. He's done it all. He's an experienced superhero. So you bring somebody on. If you bring Daredevil on, their initial fight is not going to be anything really notable. And once it's done, Daredevil, Black Widow, characters who are fairly human. What are they going to do at the end if it's a cosmic bad guy training a massive death weapon on Earth? It's going to be the thing that stops things. It made sense in a way because they were the stars of the book, but even so, I was always interested in the logistics involved. Like, for instance, in DC Presents, the logistics was often to depower Superman, have him be somehow less effective than in his own book. You got various strikes of inspiration that came and went in Marvel 2 and 1. So sometimes the issues were really, really weak, like in issue number 1 with the man thing. Other times they were really, really strong. I don't have this collection yet. I will get it as soon as the weather dries out in both senses of the word, lower humidity and no thunderstorms. But I do have the original issues that went into quite a bit of them. They're going to shock you with their condition because they've been, to put it mildly, well loved since I bought them for 25 cents before most of you were born. Like this, for instance, is Marvel 2 and 1 number 9. Look at that beautiful Gil Kane cover, huh? Look at that. Isn't that lovely? And in which the villain, the puppet master, takes over the mind of Thor. And the puppet master only has one goal in life, and that is to destroy the Fantastic Four. So he tells Thor to destroy go fly to the Baxter Building and destroy the Fantastic Four. And in this issue, the puppet master's abilities are temporarily enhanced by an extra bad guy, and Thor is distracted, we're told. So he does. He flies to the Baxter Building, blasts through the wall, takes care of Mr. Fantastic, the Human Torch, and the Invisible Girl in about 1 second each. It's about a 3-second battle. I think it takes 6 panels, drawn by Hulk regular Herb Trimpe. Not a particularly talented artist, in my opinion, and I think I wasn't the only one who had that opinion, because this issue has many, many uncredited assists from John Romita Sr., the art director of Marvel at the time. He's just sort of, you'll get one horrible Herb Trimpe panel after another, and all of a sudden you'll get one where all the faces have been redrawn and they look good. and they're not just redrawn, they're redrawn in a John Romita Sr. way. But the thing, when this issue starts, this is by Steve Gerber, and when this issue starts, the Thing is out at a puppet show with 3 other characters. Wondar, a fully grown man with the mind of a small child who has the strength level of Superman. He's invulnerable, he's super strong, super fast, but he's a boy. He's a little boy, little infant boy in a man's body. Also, Namorita, who is the cousin of the Submariner and has most of, a teenage girl's version of his power. She's super strong, she can fly, she has semi-invulnerability. And her college friend, Ann Christopher, who has horn-rimmed glasses and a beret, and that's all. The Thing is with them at a puppet show, and when they're on their way back to the Baxter Building, they see a big hole in the wall, and the Thing says, hold on, this could get a little rough. Goes into the Baxter Building, finds his teammates endangered, or, downed and out. They're still alive, but he checks in on them, and a minute later is accosted by a mind-controlled Thor, who throws him out of the building and then carries on the fight. They fight each other for 2 or 3 pages. And even back when this came out, when did this come out? This came out in 1975. Even in 1975, I was flipping through this. I loved Thor at the time, I still do. And I was flipping through it at the time, and I was thinking, well, okay, what do you mean this could get a little rough? You're with 3 other people, 2 of whom have enormous superpowers, far greater superpowers than most of your Fantastic Four teammates. You're actually approaching the Baxter Building with a stronger team than the one that just lost. And they don't show up again. The Thing is tossed out of the building. At least one of the 2 superpowered beings who are still in the Baxter Building can fly. They don't follow. They don't help. They don't restrain Thor. They don't do anything like that. Instead, it's a fight between the Thing and Thor. And at one point, I loved just the whole idea of it, because I was a big Thor fan, so I've always wanted to see him fight the Avengers or the Fantastic Four or whatever. But at one point, there's one panel there where the Thing thinks to himself, I don't get it. Thor is the god of thunder. He should take me easy. And instead, I'm going toe-to-toe with him. I thought that was a wonderful moment. But nevertheless, none of it makes any sense. And when the plot is revealed, one of the villains runs away, and they just let him. And the other villain is quickly dealt with, and Thor just flies off. We're told he has other things on his mind. Think about that for a minute. Think about how unsatisfying that is as a comic book. It shows that Marvel 2-in-1, Marvel Comics in the 70s was still in its growing pain stages away from being simply for kids. Kids would not mind that a comic book like that has so many gaping holes in its plot. Adults probably would. I don't think you could get this script past a Marvel editor today. But the same was not true in all cases. There was a two-parter in this. It's in this collection. There was a two-part story. Gerber was told, don't do two-part stories. These are in and out, one guest per issue. They're meant to be that way. Don't complicate things. And he was the wrong Marvel writer to ever tell that to. And so he did a two-part right away at the beginning of his run on Marvel 2-in-1. He did. The first one was The Thing and Captain America, who team up when the boy Wondar, his powers, he isn't in control of his powers, and he causes a massive little crisis at the zoo, at the Central Park Zoo. And the Thing and Captain America are on hand, and they help to corral the looters and fix the animals and whatnot. And then they just go back to the Baxter Building and hang out, talking. And while they're there, a woman from the future shows up via a time platform. She shows up, she sees the 20th century New York City and faints, which, to be fair, is a reaction that many of us who lived and worked in the 20th century Manhattan also had. And when she wakes up, she tells the story about how she's from 1,000 years in the future. Never mind that no one 1,000 years in the future could possibly understand the English of today, or vice versa. She tells the story about how Earth 1,000 years from now has been conquered by an alien race called the Badoon, and that there is an underground resistance movement led by a band of heroes called the Guardians of the Galaxy. And right away, Captain America and the Thing both insist that Mr. Fantastic of the Fantastic Four send the girl and them and Sharon Carter, Agent 13, Captain America's friend, Agent 13, they send them to the future to help out. Now that also doesn't make any sense. It's 4 people. You're sending them to their doom, and you're doing it voluntarily. There's no rationale to think they will live, much less ever come back. But nevertheless, that was the plot, and it's great artwork by Sal Buscema. We're not dealing with Herb Trimpe anymore. This was the first part of it. Another beautiful Gil Kane cover. You can't tell because I've had to repair this so many times, but oh my. The Thing and Captain America go to the future, and they, sure enough, encounter a world dominated by the Badoon. Those are not the Badoon, those bad guys on the cover. These guys are called Zoms. They're humans who have been pithed and made into zombie-like creatures who can't feel pain. And they are the foot soldiers of the Badoon. They are the bad guys that our heroes fight, but they also encounter a gigantic creature called the Monster of Badoon, and it temporarily beats them. And that moves us on to the second issue, in which the Thing teams up with the Guardians of the Galaxy. Not the team that you're familiar with, to put it mildly. That is Yondu, the only character who might be even remotely recognizable by name from the massively popular movies. These are the Guardians of the Galaxy, not in the present day, where they could meet Spider-Man or Doctor Strange, but from 1,000 years in the future. A concept that was introduced just a little bit before this. They eventually got their own book for a while, and some of it was pretty interesting. But in this, they get word that that the Thing and someone they remember as Captain America, this character right here, Vance Astrovik, is 1,000 years old. He's from 20th century Earth and remembers Captain America. He knows for sure it's not an imposter. And they lead a successful rebellion against the Badoon. Look at that. Sal Buscema, I tell you. Not as grand as his brother John, but really gets the job done. And this two-parter, I love. I have, as you can tell, I have read it 1 billion times. So the idea of having it in a book is very appealing, even though I'll be getting a lot of issues that that I maybe wouldn't reread ever. Maybe I will reread them this time, and maybe, who knows, maybe I'll find things about them that I've missed all the times that I've read them. Most of the artwork in this collection is by an artist named Ron Wilson, who at the time I thought, okay, you're no Jim Starlin, who drew the original, and you're no Gil Kane, and you're no Sal Buscema. Maybe I'll think different. I remember him as a solid craftsman, somebody who does solid, regularly great work. Maybe I'll like him more once I have this collection in my hand. Who knows? And Fantastic Four related. The only other thing that I would have got perhaps today at my local comic shop would have been Fantastic Four #1, which comes out today. Marvel Comics got into a marketing and branding snit with the movie studio that owns the Fantastic Four, and decided in a fit of pique that they would no longer run a Fantastic Four comic book. Marvel Comics, without the Fantastic Four, the title that launched it all, the first family of Marvel superheroes. And for years that's been the case. Fantastic Four has been gone. And recently Marvel has softened up the water with a new iteration of Marvel 2-in-1 starring the Thing and the Human Torch. And this week, today, they're bringing out Fantastic Four #1, in which the team reunites, and they are back in the Marvel Universe, and things are back to normal, I would hope. I haven't read the issue, so I'm not sure. Maybe the issue makes things even worse. Marvel has a way of doing that. In the 21st century, Marvel has a way of making things even worse. So I might be unhappy that there's a new Fantastic Four, one way or another. But those two things are what I might have gotten today if the weather had been clement. But the days when I was much, much younger and was willing to go out in snowstorms. I remember snowstorms. I remember pouring rain, boiling heat, where I would go to the comic shop or the local drugstore to get comics. The days when I was willing to do that seem to be over. Perhaps 28 is when one starts to gain a sense of perspective on these things. One way or another, I thought I'd give you a TBR because I am going to get at least this. I'll probably get Fantastic Four #1 the next time I'm at a comic shop. It looks like this swampy, unpredictable weather is going to end on the weekend. And that for at least a week after that, it looks like the long range forecast is that we'll have normal weather. Much, much, much drier, and daytime highs in the mid-80s Fahrenheit, maybe even lower than that. So not a health-endangering ordeal to go out and walk around. So we shall see. And I won't report back, unlike with a lot of other TBRs. I won't report back because I know I'm going to get this, and I've already windified to my heart's content about what Marvel 2-in-1 was. It had great moments after the moments collected in this issue. That Thor issue I really like for sentimental reasons, even though it's kind of dumb. That two-parter with Captain America and the Guardians of the Galaxy I think was really well done. And there were other highlights. There was a two-parter with Jim Starlin where he has Spider-Man and the Avengers team up with the Thing to fight Thanos, the villain from the Avengers Infinity War. And it is one of my favorite Marvel stories of them all. Every video. There was also a long stretch of time where the fan favorite writer and artist John Byrne came onto the Marvel 2-in-1 and did a whole bunch of really good issues that I remember well. I'm sure they've been collected. I'm sure the Epic Collection will get to them eventually. There were highlights, and there aren't many in terms of what we would consider now to be really good storytelling, but even so, for sentimental value, I will probably grab this. But I won't revisit and do a follow-up because I'm hoping that next week there'll be another thing for me to talk about on Wednesday. In the meantime, that was a small mini tutorial on Marvel 2-in-1, the original Marvel 2-in-1, which the Thing teamed up with somebody new every single month, and you never quite knew what you were going to get. I would read one issue, and he would team up with a favorite of mine, like the Submariner, for instance. And then I would read the next issue, and he would team up with Black Goliath, a character whose own new book I was not buying, and about whom I knew almost nothing, except that it was a supporting character from the old Stan Lee Avengers, who got, the power to grow super strong and super tall. Same thing with a bunch of other characters that I just didn't know. Morbius, the living vampire, I had no idea what to make of what the character would be like when brought into the world of the Thing. That was the fun part of this, is that you didn't know how these characters are going to interact. So an issue would come along. I remember a new issue would come out, and as I would be taking it home, I wouldn't read it until I got home, but as I was taking it home, I would be thinking, okay, well, let's see. The guest star this time around is Doctor Strange, let's say. Okay, let me think. What interactions have Doctor Strange and the Thing had? Would they like each other? Would they really know each other? Would they work well together? Will they argue? What is their history like? That was always fun to do, to remember that. I don't think you could do it now. I don't think you could do it now. I'd be interested to see what it would be like. I think that for marketing reasons, Marvel would probably want the host character to be Wolverine. And I don't see how that would work, but one way or another, those are all my thoughts on Marvel 2-in-1, which was the thing I would have bought today if I weren't going to get fried and baked and broiled and poured on in order to do it. Next week we'll talk about something else. Who knows what it will be? In the meantime, I'll sign off for now. Thank you, BookTube.